Hi everyone, my name is Sachin Sharma. This is the Jyotish project. This is the first episode. What is Jyotish? So there's often an implicit assumption that the definitions and meanings that one holds are universally shared. All kinds of arguments are made and conclusions are made from this undefined haze of haphazard theorizing, leading to an overall mess. All because one simply hasn't taken the painstaking task of contemplating the meanings of the terms being used to construct their ideas. So one's definition of Jyotish will directly impact how they use Jyotish, what purpose they give to the discipline, ultimately how they're approaching their studies and practice, how they counsel others, themselves. So I simply want to take a precious moment of yours to emphasize the importance of recognizing that definitions are not just neutral labels, but carry philosophical implications and presuppositions that reveal the speaker's worldview and approach to the discipline. And especially when it comes to a subtle discipline like Jyotish, it's very easy to get everything confused. Two people might be using the same word but hold completely different definitions in their mind. So when it comes to subtle arts of this sort, it's very important to be more precise. Through explicit definitions of the core fundamental terms, foundational terms, the speaker reveals their philosophical outlook, underlying assumptions, which can then inform the audience, the listener, about the context, that is you, about the context and outlook in which the ideas are situated. So it's very important that all these smaller terms that are being used to sort of like give a download of like what my understanding to you. It's very important to have clarity, to give full exposure to each term. So this awareness that would come from this would allow for us to have a more informed conversation as it clarifies the speaker's stance and the conceptual framework being used. The definition given by any professor, that is, one professing their ideas, often decides the fate of their theoretical orientation. Right? This is extremely important. So it can tell us much about their philosophical outlook, and depending on their dedication, we could even have an idea about how they might be living their lives. But rarely do we profess our ideas by beginning to reflect on what we mean by the words that we are using to do so. So it's extremely important for me. So the definition of the word Jyotish requires an exposition, prolonged dialogue, and the exposition will inadvertently clarify its purpose. Therefore, to ask what is Jyotish is also to ask what is its meaning, what is its purpose, what is its scope. It quickly becomes quite a loaded question. So it would require hours and hours of analysis. So for this reason, in some sense, this entire channel, the Jyotish project, is one large multi-series video essay to this question, about this question, what is Jyotish? For now, to start our journey in this first episode, let's see like when we reflect on this word where it takes us. So the Jyoti in Jyotish. The root of the word Jyotish is Jyoti, right? Which means brightness, radiance, light, illumination. So there are all these kinds of connotations around light, about making something that is not being seen, seen. So the Sanskrit word Jyoti itself is derived from the root Dyut, which means to shine, to be bright. So it's a very, very ancient word. It has been used to name a discipline, which is about certain subtle things about reality, about the nature of reality. So now one may say that Jyotish is called Jyoti because ancients began to observe the twinkling lights in the night sky, cultivated a system of knowledge around understanding the spooky coincidences in alignment with the movements of these heavenly lights of Jyotis in the sky. So they decided to use the word Jyoti, twinkling light everywhere. And we see when these lights move, even sun and moon and stuff, so things happen on earth, or like seasons change, so they just started calling this Jyotish. This is simply not the case. We are speaking of matters that are not merely fathomed by observing the night sky and making correlations in your free time. So this is not this idea that these hunter-gatherers were just jobless, sort of they'd done their hunting, gathering, or like this agricultural work was done, and now they're just sitting and just looking at the night sky, and they start making correlations. Maybe that's true for certain kinds of astrologies and certain civilizations in the world who have systems around astrological systems, but this is not true for Jyotish. And this becomes very clear to us even when we consider a few basic sutras that start touching upon, which I'll take one sutra in this episode. We'll come to the sutra and you'll see. So then why is the word Jyoti being used for Jyotish? The Jyoti of Jyotish is referring to the sun. So all objects within the sun's system are running on the borrowed light of the sun. The word Jyoti, that is light, is essentially referring to the only source of light that we have, that is the sun. So the sun is the Jyoti at the center, which is the only self-illuminating object within the sun system, solar system, which makes experience possible. Even if we don't consider any sort of like metaphysics here, just we are able to perceive things, be able to see things because of the sun. It is the only true source of energy. We are fundamentally studying the illumination of a certain tiny section of space-time, a section of space where we are all having a shared experience. So these words are we have to hold them together. We have to like weave them together, like sun, light, experience, a shared experience of a certain section of space-time, because that sun at the center is illuminating that part. So then the question arises, and here's the connection: what is the sun in Jyotish? So in the context of Jyotish, we are not speaking of sun as a chemical reaction in space, but a psycho-metaphysical event occurring moment to moment. You can just say a metaphysical event also, but it's a psychologically relevant to us. This metaphysical event, it's about experience being made possible by the sun. So to understand this, we must look towards the only authoritative, and I say only very carefully, the best possible resource, I say this very carefully, that is Parashara's text on Jyotish, called Parashar Hora, commonly and incorrectly known as Brihat Parashar Hora Shastra. It's okay, it's also a good name for it, quite a magnificent name, if I may. But but Parashara Hora is there's some research coming up that is the original thing that they found on the manuscripts. Now the sun is said to be Sarvatman by Rishi Parashar. To me, this blew my mind when I read it. I was like, okay, sun is Sarvatman, and now suddenly everything makes sense. So the sun, or the Jyoti at the center, is told to be Atman. And Atma, not just this is Atma. So it can be Atma. So there's also, I've put a thing on A, but it can be Atma. No, not just Atma, but Sarva Atma. We just need to take a few moments to understand the word Atman, and then also understand the word Sarva there. So the maker of the day, the sutra says, Sarvatma cha divanatho mana kumud bandavaha sattvam kujo buddheh prokto buddho vani pradayakah. It's telling us that sun, the maker of the day, divanatho, the diva, nath of the day, the maker, the lord of the day, the ruler of the day, the one who gives us the day, is the Atman of everything. So here it's saying the whole structure is upheld by the sun, right? Sarva Atman, the Atma of everything is Divanath, sun. It's one of the words used. Then the sutra also says, and we'll contemplate this in the future episodes, Manaha Kumudbandavaha, which is Manas is Kumudbandava, moon, Sattvam Kujo, Mars is Sattvam, Buddha Prokto, Buddho Vani Pradayaka, that is Mercury is the giver of speech or consciousness spoken, the one who allows us to communicate, to connect in some sense. These are all these have to be dealt with separately, and they're all very, very profound parts of the sutra. For now, what's relevant to us is the Jyoti in Jyotish, that is the sun at the center, that is the light illuminating and making experience itself possible. So the maker or the lord of the day, the ruler of the day, is the Atman of everything. So let's just take a moment to understand this very elusive and very mistranslated and a lot of conflict around this word Atman. At least inner conflict in me. I've been contemplating this word for so many years. So maybe it's very clear to others, and it's just me who this word hasn't been clear to. But Atman is a very important word. So Atma simply means attention or awareness. People call it consciousness, but consciousness can also be used in different ways, because consciousness it can also have connotations of is used in psychology a lot. So we would be sort of importing a word in that sense with its own baggage and stuff. So currently, attention spread outwards into the world of objects, their interactions, and all other phenomenon that arises out of that interaction is the Atman spreading outward. So some saints have termed it Bahar Atman, Antaratman. Right? Antaratman is attention flowing inwards, getting concentrated, crystallized, manifesting the light, the Jyoti, to their meditations around meditating on the Jyoti, which is on cultivating the inner light, or spreading it outwards, so illuminating the world and just paying attention to all the things around you. So the word Atman essentially is referring to the thing that experiences even if there is nothing to be experienced. So when someone said it's nothingness, there, the one who had the experience of nothingness, that is that Atman. There's another very beautiful translation of the word Atman, which is that which remains. When nothing is, that thing that remains is the Atman. It is definitely a non-dual state. As at least that can be a philosophical analysis. So I can't say through my experience, but from what I've gathered, I have to be very clear there. So in this knowingness of the nothingness, the experiencer or knower of this nothingness itself is the Atman. This fundamental quality and basis of reality, as per Eastern philosophies of an esoteric nature, is Atman. So at least that is my current understanding, and I may be wrong. So the system around the solar is harnessing the attention of the sun to uphold itself. It's the Sarvatman of everything. It's not, Rishi Parashar didn't say Atman Chadivanatho. He said Sarva Atman. It's an important distinction, though it can also be overlooked. But it's still worth some reflection. These sutras are very carefully constructed because a lot has to be communicated within very few words, so one doesn't just waste words. So the system around the solar is harnessing the attention of the sun to uphold itself. So when we are studying Jyotish, we are basically studying the Atman, entangled and deluded, flowing and identifying with all phenomenon that arises to it and within it. This we'll also discuss how these are very complex parts of Jyotish. These are epistemological, ontological, and phenomenological reflections, and we'll discuss them in the future. So this is one way to look at it, and there are definitely possibly infinite ways to understand this. That Atman is entangled and deluded, flowing and identifying outside. The attention is outside, distracted by the grahas by the planets. Planets is the wrong word for it, actually, just grahas. And it's just through senses, through the indriyas, through the karmendriyas, it's going outwards and it's being pushed and pulled and it's seeing and it's identified with the world of objects. So that's the basic idea, and that's what Atman is. It's attention, basic attention, the capacity to look at something, focus on something, or awareness that I am. An undeniable, self-evident fact that I am. That is what they mean. That is my current understanding of the word Atman. That is told to be the sun. It's a very, 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 very critical sutra. It has to be overemphasized. It has to be blown up. It's a very significant sutra. In my opinion, this is the most significant sutra. This is what would connect Jyotish to the world, the realm of psychoanalysis. This is that bridging sutra. So liberation of freedom from the entanglements of space and time, from this interdependent existence between all phenomenon, is essentially the goal of all proper systems of metaphysics, Eastern metaphysics, commonly termed as religion in its shallowest socio-cultural, ritualistic and habituated form. It's one way to put it. Maybe there's some value to it, but all systems of proper yogic metaphysics or Eastern metaphysics, or not even to use the word yogic there, to avoid confusion. The goal of all Eastern metaphysics is to extract and crystallize this consciousness through the practices that prolong and cultivates one's attention. It's also called concentration, becomes that dharana becomes dhyana. So this is very important. The thing that requires the purification and liberation is consciousness itself, from all kinds of obscuration to all kinds of clarity and all kinds of realizations and revelations throughout this journey of what the seeker's journey to that, the seeker seeking the extraction of the Atman, to cultivate itself in that way. Everything arises within this awareness of the sun. It is arising to the sun, a sun at the center, and it's arising within the sun. So sun is also upholding the structure and also experiencing the structure that it's upholding. So we are studying all the phenomenon that arises within consciousness itself. The sun is the subject within which all objects arise, but sun is also an object within which it's happening. The sun is one of the objects within which all objects arise, but it's also, that's why sun is also a graha. So sun also influences, but gets influenced, but it's also the subject to which everything appears. But here we'll discuss in future episodes where moon becomes extremely important. The manas becomes very important. So it is a self-evident truth, though escapes us quite easily. It is like asking a fish regarding the whereabouts of the water, as a great master said. One simply must look around and the light is everywhere. The light of the sun is in one way, shape or form. It's self-evident, but escapes the mind very easily. Which is very symbolic. Because moon begins to think that, manas begins to think that the source of my light is my own. But it's actually the borrowed light of the sun. So when we are studying Jyotish, we are studying a profoundly complex discipline that studies the psychophysical and psychospiritual structure of reality, the nature of nature, the structure of time, space, and its relationship to the self. And it is within this context that the idea of light as illumination or knowledge comes into picture. So Jyotish gives us the eyes to perceive and unravel the underlying metaphysical structure of reality through the psychological, physiological, ontological, epistemological, phenomenological, ethical analysis of experience, of reality. So it provides a perspective even on numbers, language, and so much more. So Jyotish is the missing method of metaphysics. it is the study of the play, and it's very practical. It's not that there is a spiritual Jyotish and there's a mundane Jyotish. It's all the same stuff. It is the study of the play of the self-illuminating light within an unilluminated, cold, dark spot within the universe. By utilizing the Jyoti of Jyotish, we can become a bit less lost, a bit less scared within this otherwise inherently unconscious dark section of the universe. It's the only conscious thing that we have. That is the Atmans, the Purushas. It's the same. Just moving around, having an experience of a material world, which is also constructed of the same essence fundamentally, but cannot experience. So this also will be touched upon in a future episode. This is very complex bits. So it's a very practical thing. It's not just this impractical, you got your head in the clouds, sort of this armchair philosophy. Jyotish takes you from a very practical time, like, okay, like how do I just work on my own body? So Jyotish and Ayurveda work in tandem very beautifully. Jyotish and yoga work in tandem very beautifully. Jyotish and Vastu work in tandem very beautifully. And it's not just this impractical philosophy. So, but there's a question that astrologers like to ask each other for fun. What is the most important graha? Many people have said Earth. People say Jupiter, because Jupiter is the guru, or gives you the wisdom or perspective. Some people, everyone has different opinions. In my opinion, the sun. Atman, without the sun, there is no solar system. There's no experience of reality itself. I would say sun and even the moon, I would say. So consciousness, attention, awareness is the foundation to and of all phenomena. At least that is the revelation of Jyotish. So it's not just a system, it's a revelation. It's not just another conceptual framework. It has to be questioned, doubted, practiced, and experienced. So now we can begin to see how contemplating the root word Jyoti in Jyotish can inform us about the nature, scope, and purpose of this discipline. And we've just scratched the surface. The Jyoti or Atman or Surya, which is essentially the light of awareness, attention, or consciousness, could even nudge us to perceive different ways to refer to Jyotish as Surya Shastra, Surya Siddhanta, or Atma Vidya, and names of that sort, instead of Vedic astrology. So the ongoing translation of Jyotish as Vedic astrology has uprooted Jyotish from its philosophical roots that run really deep into the entire forest of the metaphysics of the East. So when we choose to call Jyotish Vedic astrology, we immediately carry the connotations and implications of the word Vedic as well as astrology to comprehend Jyotish, which can be a source of a lot of confusion, because Jyotish in and of itself, the word Jyoti in and of itself takes its roots into many, many directions. It can connect you to yoga, it can connect you to all the places where the word Jyoti is used by saints and mystics, and the yogic different yogic systems. So Jyotish is not just an astrology, but a whole discipline that is deeply intertwined with yoga, Sankhya, which is extremely important, and various intertwined systems of that nature. Jyotish has a proper background with its own very rich philosophy, techniques, and principles. If you ask me what is Jyotish, I just say Jyotish is simply Jyotish. But then it requires a prolonged exposition. That is the one primary purpose of the Jyotish project. And I hope I'm able to provide as much value and all my learnings from the past 10 years of my studies. I've dedicated my all and everything to this discipline. I'll continue to do so for as long as life permits me to, time permits me to, and I hope we are able to see how Jyotish is not just another astrology. It's something that has deeper roots and requires a lot of contemplation. And when we do that contemplation, there'll be many, many interesting implications and applications that will come out of that. So, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. And if you did, as they say, I'm new to this stuff, like and comment and subscribe and click on the bell icon. And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video.